Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. This is the 3-Month Vacation. I'm Sean D'Souza on vacation. Yes, this is episode 2 of 6 of the reruns that we're going to run. And today's episode is free versus paid. Now, when I'm walking around on Friday, I go to a food store, one of my favorites, Faro, and you get samples, and samples are free. And then, of course, you get stuff that you can pay for and that's paid for. So which one should make more of an impression on me? As you can tell, the free one has to be very good. With the paid one, I can take the product home and work with it. I've made that choice. But with the free one, it has to make an impression right away. If it doesn't make an impression, it makes a bad impression. And really, that's what this podcast is about. It's about how you construct your free product versus your paid one. And not surprisingly, free has to make more of an impression than the paid one. Not as if to say the paid one is rubbish. It's just that the free one has so much more of a burden on its shoulders. Many years ago, when I started my cartooning career, I used to get all kinds of jobs. And what I really loved was the plum jobs. The jobs where you had this fabulous stuff that you could do and used to get paid really well. So I would spend hours and days and weeks doing those kinds of jobs. And then you had the recurring jobs. And these were tiny cartooning assignments which didn't pay very well. So I'd just work very quickly through them because, well, they weren't paying that much anyway. One day, my neighbor, who happened to be an art director of Elle magazine, he stopped in and said, "Sean, why are you doing such a bad job with these cartoons? Why is it that this work looks so shoddy?" And of course I said, "Well, they don't pay much." And he said, "I don't really know how much they pay when I look at your work in the newspaper. I only look at the work and I say, this work is shoddy. This work is sloppy. As a reader, I'm not supposed to know how much you get paid. I only see the end result." And this is true for us as well. In today's world where we're giving away free stuff, we look at the stuff that we're giving away and we think, wait, we need to put in all our efforts into creating great products and great services. But if it's going to be free, then we need to pull back a bit. We can't put in all the effort into free. And my art director friend would tell you, I don't see it that way. It cannot be shoddy. It cannot be sloppy. And that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover how you need to make your free product as valuable or even more valuable than your paid product. So what are the 3 benchmarks that you need to create this magic? The first thing that we're going to cover today is the concept of consumption. The second thing is how it needs to have that unhurried look, that unhurried texture, that unhurried feeling. And finally, we need to feel pain, real pain. So let's cover these 3 topics. Let's start off with the first topic, and that is one of consumption. In case you didn't already know it, Netflix has been monitoring your behavior for a very long time. Netflix is big time into consumption. And the reason for that is very simple. The more they get you to come back and watch serials and movies, the more likely you are to renew your subscription month after month, year after year. And for ages, the television industry has suggested that the pilot episode is the most critical of them all. If someone watches the pilot episode, they're going to watch all the rest, or at least that's how the philosophy went until we ran into Netflix. So Netflix started pinpointing the episodes for each show season, in which 70% of all users went on to complete the entire series. And here's what they found. When they looked at Breaking Bad, the hook was not episode number 1, it was episode number 2. When they looked at the prison comedy Orange is the New Black, they found that episode number 3 was the one that made the difference. In some cases, it was episode number 8 that made the difference, in some 2, in some 4, in some 3, in some 5. What they found, however, was that people wanted to get to the end, and that if they got them to binge watch, they would watch all of them one after the other. What does this tell us about our clients? What does this tell us about our reports and our newsletters? It tells us that people are a lot more willing to give us a chance than we think if we can get them to the end, and this is why consumption becomes so critical. So when you look at all of those signups, those little boxes that say, just give me your name and your email address, and let's do this quickly. Well, that's not how people really behave. When you do the study, people behave differently. They want to consume stuff. They want to spend more time at your site. They want to read a little more before they commit. And so when you're creating a product, maybe it's just a report, maybe it's an article, a series of articles, maybe it's a webinar or a podcast, people will take their time. They will give you more than one chance. It's not like you need to have a sloppy first time, but it's not like you have to convince them either, because they take their time. And what you have to ensure is that they get from point A to point C at the very least. You have to get them through the stages, and this is what we do with the headline report. When you get to Psychotactics and you subscribe to the newsletter, you get a headline report. And it shows you how to write headlines, just taking 3 easy steps. But there is no hurry. It goes through the introduction, it gives you the philosophy, and then it takes you to step 1, and you're able to create a headline. And then step 2, and you'll be able to create another headline, and step 3, and the third type of headline. So, in under 10 minutes, you can create headlines just reading the report, but it gets you to the end. When you get to the end, you already have this superpower. You have this ability to write headlines, to figure out which headlines are missing those components, and so it's complete. And what's happened there is it has been designed for consumption. It has been designed to make sure that the client gets that superpower, that ability to do something. When you look at a lot of the webinars online or the podcast, a lot of the stuff is based on information. It is more and more and more information, but not stuff that you can directly apply. And this is what we have to work at. Because we're not in the entertainment business like Netflix. Their goal is to make sure that you get to the end of the episode, the next episode, and then right to the end of the series. They're totally in the entertainment business and we are in the information business, but we need to make sure that we're not just giving information, but we're giving that client a superpower. We're giving them the ability to write headlines. We're giving them the ability to do something specific at the end of it. And so we need to start off with the end in mind. And that's probably what Netflix is doing anyway. They're going, what is the end point of this series? And that end point is then creating all the series back to back so that you get hooked. And you need to ask yourself that question as well. When you're creating a report, when you're creating an article, when you're doing anything that you're giving away free, the shoddiness comes from the fact that you're just going to give away information, more information. But in reality, if you think about it from a perspective of when they finish this, what superpower will they have? That changes everything, doesn't it? That makes your client more likely to binge read, binge listen, binge watch, whatever it is that you're going to throw. And so then the free becomes more important than the product itself because they haven't paid for anything and they've got this value which they just didn't expect. So consumption comes in very quickly and consumption becomes more critical than attraction and conversion, which gets bandied about all over the internet. You need to know how to attract. You need to know how to convert. But once you've gone through that, the third stage, consumption, that is the most critical of all. And you can start off with your free product or your report or just about anything as long as you know what is the end in mind and how will it help the customer get to that end and have the superpower. And that brings us to the end of this first section. Let's go to the second section. And let's explore why your free product or service needs to look very unhurried and yet very packaged. On Fridays, something very strange happens at our cafe. The usual baristas disappear and someone else takes their place. Now it bugs me when baristas get changed on Fridays because you're starting to settle in, you're starting to relax a bit, and then your whole routine has changed because of this changing barista. Anyway, so this new barista, she's making the coffee and she places it in front of us. And she goes away and the cafe is reasonably quiet, almost too quiet for a Friday. So she comes over and she asks for my opinion. She says, "How did you find the coffee?" And of course, I'm the wrong person to ask for an opinion because I will give it. And so she's standing there for about 20 minutes listening to what I have to say because I'm telling her how I evaluate the coffee. And the way I evaluate coffee is I look at the barista themselves and I look at how they're dressed. And maybe this is just me, but every time I see an untidy looking barista, I get bad coffee. So the first thing I'm looking for is how tidy does the barista look? And then the second thing I'm looking for is how tidy does my cup of coffee look? Is there art on it or is it just coffee in a cup? And before I've even tasted the coffee, I have a pretty good idea whether the coffee is going to be good or bad. Then, of course, there are variables. There can be humidity, the temperature of the milk. There are so many variables in the coffee. But at the very core, I'm looking for this unhurried, professional coffee that comes out in the midst of a deadline. And this is what your client is looking for as well. They're looking for this report, this article, this information that is unhurried. They know that you're busy, but they don't care. They're the clients. They want this product or the service to look professional long before they open it. Packaging becomes very critical, and packaging needs to look unhurried. It needs to look like someone has spent a little time despite the deadline. And you see this a lot in Japan. I have mentioned this before on the podcast, but Japan is probably the best place in the world to buy pretty much anything. You can go to the smallest store and ask for food, and you've seen how sushi and sashimi has been packaged. It's always very cleanly packaged. There's this design element around it, but you can go and buy some sweets, you can go and buy a little pendant, you can buy pretty much anything in Japan, and you get packaging. You get this look of unhurriedness. And when you have this product, whether it be a webinar or a podcast, you need to feel that packaging. So what sets off that packaging? For instance, in this podcast, the story that starts up right at the beginning, that tells you that some amount of research has gone into the whole Netflix story. The fact that there are 3 points that we're going to cover, that tells you that's a very clear outline. This is like the barista. You've not really listened to the episode yet, but you get this feeling. You get this feeling that there is a logic and there is work put into this, and it's unhurried. And that is what is critical, because it sets you up for the rest of the binge listening or the binge reading or the binge experiencing. And you can tell the difference between a great presenter and a crappy presenter. You can tell the difference between a good writer and a bad writer. There is always this factor of unhurriedness. We need to get the client to feel this packaging long before they get to the meat of the content. And Netflix, their research has shown exactly that clients are willing to go the distance before they decide, okay, this is really good or this is really crappy. And so we will walk into cafes and look at the barista and either stay or walk out. And it's based on this factor of unhurriedness. How do they present themselves? How do they present their coffee? And it's the same thing for your product. Your cover, your introduction, your structure, that needs to be very clear before I get into the meat of the matter. And that's what you really need to work on. And that's what makes the difference between a free product and a paid product. It needs to look like a paid product. It needs to look like something you paid a lot of money for, and yet you got it free. Now, you don't have to spend months and years working on this free product, but make it tidy. And this takes us to the third part, which is the pain that you must feel when you're giving away your free product. As you know, I like to cook Indian food, and two dishes that make me very happy are butter chicken and a dal. A dal is a lentil, by the way. And if you were to ask me to give away the butter chicken or the dal, I would hesitate. Now, I like them both as much, but I like one better than the other. Well, not really, but here's the thing. I still would hesitate to give away the chicken, the butter chicken. And that's the kind of dilemma that you're dealing with. You're dealing with a situation where you've got this really good stuff, and you're not really that keen on giving it away. You think maybe it would be a good idea to give away something that is not quite so saleable. Because when you look at what you've done, you've spent a lot of time and effort, and somehow it seems like a shame to just give it away. And you've got to feel that pain. You really have to feel that pain, because when you feel that pain, that's when you know that the client is going to feel, wow, this is amazing. It's almost too easy to give away something that is not quite up to that standard. and you know the standard. It doesn't matter where you are in life, you know your standard and you know what's possible and you know your best. And when you're giving away your best, you feel that pain. I remember the time I went and met a friend of mine, and he is a world-class watercolorist. He had just finished a workshop in Auckland, and of course, we met, we had a beer, etc. And after that, he gave me one of his sketches. He just pulled it out from his bag and he gave it to me. And what did I do with the sketch? I looked at it. I said thank you. I took it home. Do you think it was his best sketch? His best watercolor? Of course not. It was just something that he was doing, just a rough sketch. So it stayed around the office for a while, and then it went under the bed, and then I don't even know where it is anymore. Now, even if he were listening to this podcast, he would not know that I'm referring to him, because I know quite a few watercolorists. So if you're a watercolorist and you gave me a painting, there's a pretty good chance that I don't know where it is right now, because it wasn't your best. And this is the whole point. When you give away stuff, give away the best stuff, or at least part of the best stuff. Now, we sell a course called the Pre-Sell Course, and this teaches you how we sell our courses, how we sell our workshops, how we sell our products. We sell our products faster than pretty much anyone on the internet. Courses that cost $3,000, in 20 minutes the course is full. No strategic alliances, no ads, no joint ventures, no nothing. How do we do it in 20 minutes? So the pre-sale course shows you that. And it's not cheap. It's almost $400. But we wanted the audience, our members, our subscribers, to understand how powerful this course was. So what we did was we sliced it up into about a fifth of the course and gave it away. You know, someone wrote back to me and said, I didn't buy the rest of the course, but just using that 1/5, I was able to launch a product very successfully. Are you thinking what I'm thinking right now? We're giving away stuff that is so powerful that the client might not even need to come back for some more, but they will come back. And that's what we found consistently. We found that when we give away stuff which is useful, that is consumable, that is powerful, the client comes back. Because that's what happens in real life. When you give away a sample, something that's amazingly tasty, it's not like the diner goes away and just doesn't come back. We've found time and time again, and this is in the pre-sale course, by the way, there's a whole section on sampling. And it talks about how sampling increases sales by 200, 300, 400%. It's incredible. I didn't think that sampling could do that, but it does it. There are statistics to prove it. But if the sample itself is not so powerful, not so outstanding, why is the client going to buy a product or service from you in the future? This brings us to the end of this podcast, and we covered 3 things. The first thing was a factor of consumption. You need to get the client from one point to the other. And interestingly, as we saw on Netflix, it doesn't matter. You don't have to speed up the process. You don't have to get people to sign up right away. They read, They read a little bit. They read the introduction. They look at how it's constructed. And that takes us to the second one, which is your packaging needs to be great and unhurried. It's like every time we go to the cafe, we look at the barista and we say, how are they? Are they neat? How's the coffee presented? Is it perfect? That's how you know you've got a great coffee. That's how you know you've got a great product. And finally, you have to feel that pain when you're giving away your product. If you don't feel that pain, it's like giving away the dal instead of the butter chicken. It's not that the dal is bad, it's just that the butter chicken, well, you'd rather be eating it yourself, right? So what is the one thing that you can do today? The one thing that you can do today is to look at whatever you're giving away and see, is it built for consumption? Can they go from A to B to C and then have that superpower? If no, then you're just giving information. We don't need more information. We're done with information. Just give me some skill that I can sort out in the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever, but quickly. If you've been following with the podcast, you have known that the last 3 months have been quite grueling. And the reason why they've been grueling is because we had the article writing course. Now, at the end of the course, I always ask for two things. The first thing is feedback, and the second thing are the testimonials. Feedback involves stripping the course to bits. So we look at the forums, the way the notes were given, all the little bits and pieces, and I ask clients to break it apart. And the reason why we do that is because next time's course, no matter which course it is, becomes better. And definitely the article writing course would improve, and as it has done for the last 10 years. I'm not talking about just some gentle improvement. I'm talking about seismic level, earth-shaking improvements. It's fascinating how this happens year after year. You think, okay, I've just done everything I possibly could. But no, if you ask for brutal feedback, you get brutal feedback. And it frustrates you, it rattles you a lot. It still rattles me to this day. And I know the reason why psychotactics courses have become so precise. It's because of this brutal feedback. But once you've got brutal feedback, you need to get your ego up to what it used to be. And that's when you have to deal with testimonials. So the next day after the brutal feedback, I ask for testimonials. And this is all structured in a way that enables clients to give very long and very detailed testimonials. Some of the testimonials are between 800 to 1500 words. Now, when you take just 25 people who have done this course and you take 1500 words, you're looking at a little book. This is the reason, or this is one of the reasons why so many people sign up to the course the next time around. We don't do joint ventures, we don't do affiliates, we don't do AdWords, we don't do everything that everyone says that you should do. And, well, I'm fine if you do it, but we don't do it. We've never done it. The reason why we have clients is A, we do a good job, but B, new clients, they see the testimonials and they sign up. And I would strongly suggest that you listen to the podcast. I think it's number 38 and number 96. But you also want to make sure that you read the book on testimonials. That's at psychotactics.com/testimonial. It's not testimonials, testimonial. And it'll show you exactly why testimonials are so critical. And if you have any doubts about how you're going to implement the testimonial, what you're going to do, you have all these questions, and you have these questions at 3 a.m. in the morning, well, there is one place on the planet where these questions get answered, and that is at 5000 BC. 5000 BC is the membership site, and you will find that it's incredible. If you want to improve your business in the way that you ask a question, you fix the problem, you ask another question, you fix the problem, well, you can ask endless amounts of questions. So there you go. You've got your little nudge. Go to 5000 BC. There is a waiting list, as in you have to wait for 21 days at the very least. So go there and sign up, and when I get back, I'll be there to answer your questions. But in the meantime, we have a lot of the members of 5000 BC. They've done courses, they've read the books, they're very knowledgeable, and they will help you as well. That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye.